for being here. Oh, we're recording. Okay, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for being here. Please be sure to mute your microphone as to keep background noise to a minimum. Also, please submit all questions in the chat window there at the bottom of your screen. You may unmute when asking questions or speaking at the end. We'll reserve 5 minutes toward the end of our session for questions. My name is Lorianne Galito Patel with the Carolina Family Engagement Center, and this session is entitled The Missing Link, Father's Absence and Child Outcomes. And our speaker today is Mark Hines with SC Fathers and Families. Mark Hines is a native of Columbia, South Carolina. He attended the College of Charleston on an athletic scholarship where he received a Bachelor of Science degree in psychology. After graduation, he immediately enrolled in the Master of Social Work program at the University of South Carolina. After receiving this degree, he served in various positions in the fields of education, health, and career development, and has developed a passion for helping others reach their full potential. He is currently pursuing a master's degree in counseling from Webster University and is a certified global career development facilitator instructor. Mr. Hines currently serves as a community and agency relations manager for the South Carolina Center for Fathers and Families, a faith-based nonprofit organization that supports a statewide infrastructure designed to strengthen relationships between fathers and families throughout South Carolina. In this position, he provides programming support, training, and oversight of various statewide projects. He also served as an associate producer for their documentary Facing Early Fatherhood, a project that highlights the struggles of 3 young men who become fathers at an early age, and hosted statewide events that have focused on fatherhood. Before joining the center, Mark worked at the University of South Carolina, where he taught career development courses and provided career counseling services to business students. He and his wife, Rosalind, are the proud parents of 3 adopted children, Colin, Caitlin, and Dylan. Did I get that right, Mark?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so now I'll hand it over to you. Thank you so much.
All right, and thank you. I didn't realize that the bio sent in was so long, so thank you for
no worries.
sharing each and every detail.
you sound like a very busy man, so we'll get right to it.
I stay busy. There's more to it, but that's enough for now. Again, thank you so much for this opportunity. Really appreciate it. To the Carolina Family Engagement Center and all the partners that are involved in this conference and this summit. We really appreciate the opportunity. So I'm going to share my screen. We are going to talk about what I'm calling the missing link, father absence, and how it impacts child outcomes. Of course, many of you are on here are educators. You're working on the front lines. You're seeing children. You're seeing the effects of things going on with children. And I'll even talk more specifically. You're seeing the effects of the current environment. I've seen it, in my own family and in those around me. When people are stressed, when people are going through things, it often shows up in our behavior. It shows up in the grades. It shows up in attendance or lack thereof. It shows up in mental health. It shows up in all of these different areas. And I believe one of the things I'll show you all today is one of the biggest causes or biggest disruptions, if you allow me to say, in education is the family structure. And in particular, with this workshop, really looking at father absence. So before I get into the specifics and the effects of children, I do want to talk a little bit about what we do, because a lot of people aren't familiar with us. So the center was started in the late 90s with the goal of impacting children through father engagement. When they started this program, there were services for women, there's services for children, but nobody was really addressing fathers. So it started as a series of grant programs through the Sisters of Charity Foundation. Then we formed the center to oversee the projects that now take place throughout the state. So many of you are from different parts of the state, as I saw earlier in our plenary sessions. We have 6 programs or 6 local organizations throughout the state. So if you're from the upstate area, we have the Upstate Fatherhood Coalition with offices in Anderson, Greenville, and Spartanburg counties. If you're in the, Catawba region, we have offices in York County and Lancaster County called A Father's Way. The Midlands area with our offices in Lexington, Richland, and Sumter is the Midlands Fatherhood Coalition. In the PD area, we have man-to-man with offices in Marlborough and Florence County. Later on, we'll have some participants and a staff person from that area. We're hosting a panel in a later session, and you'll hear from some of our participants from that area. The Myrtle Beach area, Horry and Georgetown counties, we have a program there called A Father's Place. And then in the Low Country area, we have offices in Berkeley and Charleston County, and that program is called Father to Father. So that's an overview of who we are. So I'm at our central office, quote unquote, but throughout in your communities, if you say, hey, I really like this fatherhood thing, I want to learn more about it, you're most likely going to be working with those local organizations who have staff that work directly with fathers and families and participants. So that's who you might interact with. Of course, you can reach out to us at the center, but we often refer to those local programs because that's where the real impact takes place. So one other thing about, well, really two other slides about what we do. This is what I call the fatherhood flow chart, because a lot of people say, well, what do you do with fathers? You know, you think of the services for mothers and children, but what does it look like for fathers or a fatherhood program? So if you work from left to right, you'll see that we have court and voluntary. So we get our participants through voluntary processes. They just heard about us, you know, mama told them about it, the program, you know, a referral from a previous participant, et cetera. But we also work with the court system. A lot of people don't understand and realize the impact of the issue of child support here in the state of South Carolina and even nationally. In South Carolina, one out of eight prisoners here in South Carolina are in there because of child support. I often make the point of, many of you are familiar with the social injustice and things going on in society today. Well, in Charleston, of course, we know about Emmanuel Church shootings, and then we also know about Walter Scott. Walter Scott was shot running from the police officer. I believe that was back in 2015, and he was running because he didn't want to go back to jail for child support. So child support, family issues are a big issue, and a lot of, especially men, non-custodial fathers, end up in court, end up in prison. And so we've been fortunate enough to establish relationships with the court system, with DSS. And instead of sending these men to court, we say, hey, send them to us. Instead of them putting them on the federal government or our payroll, basically putting them, you know, making us responsible for them by putting them in jail, send them to us, let us provide services, help them get their feet on the ground, and help them get a job so that they can take care of their financial responsibilities. So we do that throughout the state. We have orientation, we do intake, we get a lot of information on our participants. We do a career assessment to help them make sure they're in the right place and doing the thing that they should be doing. About half of our participants come to us unemployed or underemployed. So we help with those services as well. And then you see where it says the one-man plan, that's where we help them set goals. For some, it may be, you know, seeing their child. Some, you know, we often hear we see in society, we see on TV, the baby mama drama and all those things, but those are real issues. Those are real children that don't get to see their father. There are real men that are suffering because they're not given access to their children. There are real situations out there. So we help them set the goal of visitation or custody or, being able to pay their child support or securing employment. So we set those goals. And then at the top, that talks about our employment, which I just talked about. Then we also offer weekly peer support sessions on parenting, what we call economic stability, also healthy relationships. And then we also have a men's health curriculum. About 50 to 60% of our guys don't have health insurance. So we offer, of course, again, we educate them on the process, but we also offer health screenings and other activities to help encourage them being healthy so that they can take better care of their children. And then at the bottom, that individual development area, we provide case management services, transportation to and from sessions. Often, especially when they're newly employed, we'll provide transportation to and from their job. We help with child support and visitation and custody rights issues. We provide mediation services. That allows us to help them make arrangements with the child's mother so that they can have access to their child. And I mentioned health screenings. We also do parent-child activities in those areas that we're in as well. So that, I heard Ms. Thurman and Ms. Lisa earlier talking about, doing activities and partnering with communities. We do back to school bashes and things like that. So you may want to connect with your local fatherhood program and say, hey, we'd love to host a parent-child activity. We'd love to collaborate on, we did a Midlands walk or a run a few months ago and things like that. So we're always open to collaborating in our community as well. So that's a little bit about our direct fatherhood services. A couple of years ago, we actually got connected with Children's Trust of South Carolina and Fact Forward, which was previously known as the Campaign to Prevent Teen Pregnancy. And in that partnership, we started providing services to young parents and in particular, young fathers. So in various communities throughout the state, we were serving teen parents. And we would, again, target those fathers, and then we'd have partners that would serve the young mother. Along with that, we decided to start doing more to work on the prevention side as well. So a couple of things we did. One, we actually did a documentary on 3 of our young fathers. You all heard it in my bio. We did a documentary on 3 of our young fathers. We wanted to highlight the struggles and challenges of being a young parent. So we highlighted 3 young men, 2 from the Myrtle Beach area, 1 from the Columbia area, and followed them over the course of about a year. And they dealt with fatherlessness themselves. They dealt with anger issues, drug issues, promiscuity, having to fight for the right to see their child and custody rights. One young man, he had the child at the age of 15. The mother didn't let him know that the child was born. He just happened to find out, I believe, about 3 weeks after the child was born. He was put on child support, 17 years old and put on child support, working 2 and 3 jobs. So we highlighted that. We've shown it throughout the state. And as I was preparing for this, I was thinking, man, this would be a good thing to show at schools as well. Showing young people, showing teenagers, hey, this is the life you can live if you are promiscuous, if you're having sex before being in that committed relationship. This is what life could look like for you. So definitely, if you're interested in that or anything else, please reach out to us. That's something we've shown throughout the state and gotten good feedback from, and really a good learning tool for people, for professionals, and for young people as well. At the bottom, you see where it says supporting young fathers. We created a website that helps us provide resources to young parents, young fathers. And then to the right, you see what's called Fatherhood Reality Check. We decided to create a prevention curriculum. It's what I call pregnancy prevention from the fatherhood perspective. In my bio, you heard I previously worked in health, and my first job at USC as a graduate assistant was being a sexual health educator. And so I was doing workshops and, showing how to put the condom on and all that stuff, and which is fine. But our approach is, hey, if you have sex, if you have a child, this is what life could look like for you. So because you could have custody issues, because you'll have trouble, could have trouble finishing your education and getting a good job, because of those things, let's hold off. And now let's learn how to budget. Now let's learn how to make connections and get a good support system. Let's take a career assessment so you get focused on your goals, so that you go through what's called the success sequence, which is getting your education, getting a job, then getting married or in a healthy, committed relationship, then having the child. That's what's called the success sequence. So we actually have this curriculum. We are now doing it in various locations throughout the state of South Carolina. If you're interested in that as well, especially if you work in a high school or in any community organization that serves young people, we're targeting kind of high school age up into young adulthood. If you have interest in that curriculum, I can reach out to me and we can talk about that curriculum and the possibilities of doing that in your community as well. But that's not our focus today. Our focus is really addressing father absence and how it impacts child outcomes. So, but I did want to start with this question, why fatherhood? Why do they invite this dude, to talk about that? All the things we can talk about with father engagement. What about the mom? What about the child? Why fatherhood? And I wanted to spend a couple of minutes establishing why this topic is so important. And to me, even as I mentioned in the title, the missing link, one area that really hasn't been addressed. So I do want to spend a minute talking about that. So first of all, I have a psychology background, social work background. So, when Dr. Pawlowski was talking earlier about the brain and things like that, I have that tilt as well. I really believe we need to understand why we do things. And of course, the impact and outcome of it, but also the psychology of why. And so I often share this when I speak with professionals. Many of you may be familiar with this. It's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Was developed by Abraham Maslow. And in this, he talks about these 5 levels of needs that everybody has. And his premise is that if you don't have the first level met, you're not going to get to the next level. You're not going to, if you never have your safety and security needs met, you're not going to get to a level of self-actualization where you have clarity in your morality and creativity and purpose. You're not going to get there because those basic needs are never met. So one of the reasons I like to show this is because at one time when I was looking at this, I realized that fathers really should, let me say it this way, should help establish those, especially those first few basic needs. So when you see physiological needs, that's air, food, that's our basics. That's just basic life stuff. But then you have that second level of safety, security, health, and just feeling safe and secure. And that leads to our love and belongingness, which deals with intimacy and relationships. And then your self-esteem, how you feel about yourself, your self-confidence, etc. And then your self-actualization. So one day while showing this, I realized that, or I'm almost debating how to put it to you because I often have discussions about this, but this is just me talking today. But those first 3 levels of needs, traditionally, I'll say it like that, and then I'll back it up a little bit, traditionally have been provided by fathers. So traditionally, especially, and I'll say it in this context too, especially in a 2-parent home, you have the father that provides the physiological needs, the roof over their head, the water, those types of things. Then with that comes safety and security. And then because of that, they develop the love and belongingness that they need. So that's what I'll call the traditional model. Saying it that way because, for one, society's changing. Secondly, you'll see in a later slide that the family structure and family dynamic has changed. And we need to, but we still need to understand that this is these are the needs that need to be met. And we need to make sure needs are met before a child can reach their self-esteem needs. So many of you are dealing with kids that don't have self-esteem. Many of you are seeing kids that haven't felt loved or belonged. That's why they're talking to all the boys in the school. And you want to see that statistically, that's what happens. You're going to see it later in our presentation. So you're dealing with kids that haven't had their needs met. And my challenge to you, or my statement to you, is that often the father should have been in place to provide those needs. But again, society has changed. I shared this once at a presentation, and I put it out as a question. I said, of those first 3 areas, who traditionally provides those needs? The love and belongingness, the safety and security, the physiological. There was a long pause. Nobody said anything. And it surprised me. These were, so medical folks and, should be very smart and all that. So I was a little surprised. And then finally somebody said, a woman said, yeah, or I mentioned fathers. I said, do y'all not see fathers in this providing safety and physical? And finally a young lady said, yeah, back in the 60s. So her response was, men are not needed anymore. Fathers are not needed anymore to provide these areas. But I'll show you statistically that's not the case. It may sound good. It may people have made adjustments based on their situation, but statistically we're not making the adjustment well. And you're going to see that in much of what I cover for the rest of this time. So it's very important for us to realize a father's value, a father's place, a father's role in society, within that family, and their role impacts everything else in society. You're going to see that. They have such a major impact on society, but again, we don't realize it, we're not thinking about it, we're not highlighting it, we're not displaying it, because and rightfully so, there's so many other things going on. But a father's value has been underestimated in our society. But that's one of my goals today, is to show you how valuable they are, right? So that's a basis for us to look at. So now let's look at some statistics. So number one, after just showing you that, in this state, in South Carolina, 41% of children in South Carolina are now growing up in single parent homes. Second highest in the nation, 41%. In African-American families, it's closer to 70%. So if we're talking about needs being met, if we're talking about family units being able to provide adequately for their children, parents working together to make things happen, whether that's childcare, whether that's employment, whether that's money, whether that's housing, whatever that is, we've got a large majority of kids that are no longer getting two slices of the pie. They've got one person doing it. And again, it can be done. So I'm not underplaying or underestimating the strength of women and things like that, or single parent, but we know two are better than one. We know when two parents are in that home that, and again, we're going to see it later, their kids are safer, kids are getting more of what they need, they're provided for, etc. My father, who's 79 now, my mother passed last year. My father is from Selma, Alabama. So if you can imagine being a Black man in Selma, Alabama in the 40s, had a rough life. And he recently asked me what I did. He asked me that all the time. He's some memory issues. And so he asked me that recently. And he said, what do I do? And I explained, I work with fatherhood and men that are often, don't have high education. They're dealing with poverty and dealing with various challenges. And so my dad, he asked me that. And then he said, hey, how come, I have four brothers, doing okay, doing well. So he said, why didn't we end up like that? Kind of asked me that sincerely. And I said two reasons. I said, one is you got married. And secondly, I said, and you stayed. So he got married and he stayed, which created a more stable environment for us as children. A more, whether that's financially, whether that's emotionally, modeling at least from what we know of, a healthy relationship. So because he simply got married and stayed in the relationship, my life ended up better off because of that, the choice that he made. That doesn't mean he didn't have challenges. That doesn't mean he didn't want to leave. That doesn't mean we didn't try to drive him crazy. It means though he got married, committed to two people staying in that house and providing and meeting the needs of children. And then he stayed even when times got tough. And my point to you is that in our state now, we're not seeing that as often as we should. I don't have time to do that right now, but you can even correlate where you see a higher number of single parent homes, you see lower health rates in the state. You see higher poverty rates in the state. Even later today, we're going to be in the PD area. We were doing some men's health work in Dillon County. Dillon County has high mortality rates. I mean, like the third lowest life expectancy rate in the state. Might have been even second or third lowest life expectancy rate in the state, in Dillon County. And sure enough, if you look, you've got high single parent rates. So there's a correlation. If children are in those single parent homes, they're less likely to get what they need. Doesn't mean they won't get it, but they're less likely to get what they need. So that's why that's so important for us to realize. So let's go even a step further here. So if that father is not there, this is a quote from Pharrell and Gray. It's a book called The Boy Crisis. Some of my colleagues saw them speak at a conference recently, and they made this statement, and it has stuck with me ever since they came back and told me it. The statement is, the absence of dad equals the presence of government. So when dad is not there, now somebody has to step in and fill the gap for that dad not being there to do his job, to take care of his responsibility, to meet those Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now the government has to make up for what that child might be missing. So if you think about many of the social service programs, think, and y'all, if I open it up, I'm sure y'all could put it in the chat or take your mic off to comment. What are some of the social service programs out there? WIC, and we're working with DHEC, and they're a partner of ours, so not saying anything bad about them. But what does WIC stand for? Women, Infants, Children. It's the federal government attempting to subsidize what that family, what that mother, what that child might be missing, because typically that parent is that father is not there. It's housing subsidies, Section 8 and those types of things. They were created to make up for that, basically that father being missing, that second person being missing in that home. So now I've got to create programs so that they can still have housing because the father's not there to provide the housing. And with working with what we do and working with fathers, we have men that they may be in a committed relationship, but because of the way Section 8 and housing subsidies are set up, they can't live with the child. They can't live with the mother, because if they find out they're there, they lose the subsidy. So it's really kind of a unique situation, the benefits that are offered as a result of that father being there. And it goes back to my point. When I said my dad, because he got married and he stayed, the government never had to pay for me. The government never had to step in and take care of myself or my mother, because he was there to fulfill his role the best he could. And so we're seeing that in society. When that father is missing, that means we're having issues. And so the government has to step in to subsidize what's missing, because if not, society will suffer, right? So here's another stat to look at that. When that happens, what happens is the government has to again pay for what's missing, and that totals almost $100 billion a year nationally. The annual public cost of father absence is about $100 billion a year. We pay for that through child support enforcement, programs for single mothers, whether that's childcare, whether that's WIC, TANF, all these programs, the prison system. We are missing, and so as a nation, it impacts us because we have to put so much towards taking care of families that don't have the father in place. It's costing our nation $100 billion a year. That in itself shows the impact of not having fathers in their place to take care of their children. It shows the impact that it's making on society as a whole. So this is a major issue. Again, we often don't deal with it. We don't think about it, but these are facts. This is the issue. These are the challenges. And this is the cost societally. This is the cost we see statewide. This is the cost you may see in your community. Being in a low income district, you can almost trace single parent families by zip code. Those low income zip codes, you'll see higher percentages of single parent families. So that's the impact. So now let's look at more impacts for the child, which is what you guys came for. Let's look at that with children. So a couple of things here that we'll go over. And a lot of this information is from the Children's Bureau. So I'm not going to read everything word for word, but I did think a lot of this information is so relevant, again, with what you all do in the education system. So when that father's not there, there's a variety of issues that can arise because of that father not being involved. So first bullet here says children's diminished self-concept. That sounds like self-esteem. That sounds like that third, the third level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's self-esteem, third or fourth level actually. So diminished self-concept and compromised physical and emotional security. That sounds like earlier needs. So children report feeling abandoned when their fathers are not involved. They struggle with their emotions and have episodic bouts of self-loathing. So you all will see that in the schools. You'll see the depressed child, the child that's acting out. And often the root is their family structure. Behavioral problems. Fatherless children have more difficulties with social adjustment. They're more likely to report problems with friendships, manifest behavior problems, which I just talked about. Here's the part I thought was interesting. Many develop a swaggering, intimidating persona in an attempt to disguise their underlying fears, resentments, anxieties, and unhappiness. So that child that tries to make up for it with his personality by whether it's bullying other kids or being hard or things like that, that's what happens when the father's not there. They try to make up for it through their personality, through their behavior. Also, well, and a good point here, the reality check curriculum that I talked about, we were doing it with the Spartanburg football team. And I asked them, I said, because maybe about 40%, let's say about 40% of the room didn't have their father. So I asked them, how many of y'all think it's important to have a male role model in your life? And some of them said that's important, but a couple of them said, no, I don't need him. I don't need anybody. I don't need that. What was it? It's what we're seeing here. An intimidating persona that disguises their underlying fears, resentments, anxiety, and happiness. I don't need help. I'm good. Bump him. Forget him. I don't need it. So it's a reaction to what you really need. But your reaction is, well, since I'm not getting it, I really don't need it. I'm good all by myself. And so again, you all may be seeing that in the classroom. Also with that is truancy and poor academic performance. I think this one's pretty clear. 71% of high school dropouts are fatherless. Fatherless children have more trouble academically, scoring poor in tests, reading, math, thinking skills, and less likely to attain academic and professional qualifications in adulthood, less likely to get that bachelor's degree, less likely to move on in education. It's interesting when people, and I'm a big proponent of education and training of any kind. One of the things we deal now, and that we've also worked into our curriculum, is not just the 4-year degree, but some sort of training. There's such a huge need for middle skills jobs, trades, etc. So I'm a huge proponent of getting some sort of training. But think about what this just said. Those without fathers are less likely to attain academic and professional qualifications. So when kids say, "Oh, school isn't for me," I don't want to do that school stuff. I'm done after high school, whatever. Think about their family structure. It's often a comment in relation to their family, and them not having the motivation, not having the guidance to push beyond their current environment, current situation. The next one, delinquency and youth crime. 85% of youth in prison have an absent father. Promiscuity and teen pregnancy. So children with absent fathers have a greater likelihood of having intercourse before the age of 16. So they're sexually active earlier, often doing it without contraception. They're more likely to become teen parents, and to contract STIs. Watch this. Girls manifest an object hunger for males, and experience their emotional loss. They of their fathers rejecting them. They become susceptible to exploitation by adult men. That is powerful. The fact that our girls, because their father's not involved, they're going to now be drawn to other men that may not be good for them. So again, promiscuity, the issues, the behavior issues. We often, I don't know if y'all ever thought about it and think back to school, when you were in school and you knew that girl that was, promiscuous and had a reputation. Well, just look at her home environment. We often see the behavior and what I call, we look at the symptoms, but we don't address the thing that causes symptoms. If I'm coughing, that's a symptom, but it could be a lung problem, could be flu, it could be nothing. So we got to look at the symptoms that cause our children to be promiscuous, to act out, to do things they shouldn't be doing, getting involved in areas and things they shouldn't be getting involved in. So we're seeing even a connection between fatherlessness and promiscuity. Drug and alcohol abuse. Their kids are more likely to smoke, drink, abuse drugs, both in childhood and adulthood. Homelessness, 90% of runaways have an absent father. So here they are, the father's not home, so they're running away. They don't have structure at the house. They don't have the guidance, the supervision, the safety, so they run away. Exploitation and abuse. Fatherless children are at a greater risk of suffering physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. Why? They don't have that protector there. They don't have that additional parent to protect them, to keep them safe, to help them avoid those issues. Oh boy. Even in those, and I've heard these things before too, with even I'll say this, in committed relationships, and I'm specifically talking about marriage. You have I've heard many occasions where the mother has the boyfriend that ends up sexually abusing or physically abusing the child. Here in Colombia, again, it's just a relevant example. Several years ago, young lady that I knew, I won't say her name, but young lady several years ago, many of you, if you were in Columbia area, I'll say it, her name is Gabby. She went missing, they find out the mother's boyfriend had killed her. So you don't have those protective factors. There's a big thing about protective factors now. You don't have protection in place for those children. And so they're more likely to suffer from exploitation and abuse. And then also abuse and emotional maltreatment. They're 100 times at higher risk of fatal abuse. Recent study reported that preschoolers not living with both of their biological children are 40 times more likely to be sexually abused. So major issue, major problems can occur when that father is not there. And then last, as far as the effects, physical health. So fatherless children report significantly more psychosomatic health symptoms and illnesses such as acute and chronic pain, headaches, stomach aches. So that child that's coming to school, with stomach aches and headaches, it could be drawn back to that family environment and that father not being there. Mental health disorders. Father absent children are consistently overrepresented on a wide range of mental health problems. Anxiety, depression, suicide, all those rates go up when that father's not there. Life chances. As adults, fatherless children are more likely to experience unemployment, have low income, remain on social assistance, and experience homelessness. Future relationships. Fatherless children tend to enter partnerships earlier, are more likely to divorce or dissolve their cohabitating unions, and are more likely to have children outside of marriage. So they are more likely to keep the cycle going. And then last, mortality. Fatherless children live an average of 4 years less over their lifespan. So major effects of father absence on child outcomes. So when that father is involved, children have positive child health outcomes in infants, such as improved weight gain. So even at a young age, at infancy stage, they have improved weight gain and also improved breastfeeding rates. So it even helps the mother. Fathers that are involved in using authoritative parenting with loving and clear boundaries and expectation leads to better emotional, academic, social, and behavioral outcomes for children. We often see the differences in fathers and mothers. Mothers are typically more nurturing, fathers disciplinarians. And I believe we were created to provide both sides. And so we're seeing a dynamic where only one side is being played out, and then we're seeing the issues and challenges that show up when that father's not there. Children who feel a closeness to their father are 75% less likely to have a teen birth, 80%, and this kind of reinforces some of the things we just talked about, less likely to go to jail, less likely to have depression. Children with actively involved fathers are 43% more likely to earn A's, 33% less likely to repeat a grade. So again, fathers that are engaged leads to better outcomes.
And Mark, sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to let you know there are 5 minutes left in the presentation, and then
Gotcha.
5 minutes will remain for questions.
Gotcha. Thank you. So also, this is kind of a side note here, because even if the father is non-residential or non-custodial, that means they're not living in the home, they can still have a positive effect on the child's emotional well-being and also impact their academic achievement and behavioral adjustment. So even as teachers, as educators, you still want to get that non-custodial parent involved. One of the things you'll hear later if you attend our panel, fathers, especially non-custodial, they're often not allowed into the school. They're not given access like the mother is, but it helps. It has positive effects on that child. They also have high levels of father involvement are also correlated with higher levels of sociability, confidence. Here we go back to the confidence thing, back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-control. Children with involved fathers are less likely to act out in school or engage in risky behaviors in adolescence. That's the impact of a father. And then father engagement reduces the frequency of behavioral problems in boys, while also decreasing delinquency and economic disadvantage. Having that structure in place, less delinquency, more money in the home, bottom line. And then father engagement reduces psychological problems and again, rates of depression in young women. So the benefits of fathers involved, and this is not exhaustive, this is just a few highlights of the areas and importance of that father being involved. So I hope that's been established today. So with that in mind, just a couple of practical steps as I close. With that in mind, I hope we start thinking not just about the behavior of a child and, oh, that's a bad kid. I think it was Oprah, didn't see it, but I think she did a book or something with somebody, and they talk about not dealing with the what, not dealing with just the behavior, but the what happened to you. So looking at seeing children through a different lens. Oh, that's bad, Johnny. Oh, I don't want him in my class. No, why is Johnny acting like that? What's going on in his household? What can I do to help him? I'm a male. Can I serve as a mentor for Johnny? Can I get him involved in something positively? Quick story, I was watching the news a couple of years ago, and they were featuring the woman who won the National Teacher of the Year. And she said, and they had interviewed one of her previous students, and happened to be an African-American male. She happened to be white female. And he said, man, if it wasn't for her, I'd be dead or in jail right now. And what he said was, instead of seeing him as acting out and all this stuff, he was, talkative and all that stuff. She said she saw the potential in him and had him serve as the greeter at the door. And so instead of treating him like a criminal or like a bad behaving person, she allowed him to be empowered and use that for something productive. And he said that saved his life. So you have the same opportunity. Another point is to make your school father friendly. Do things that are welcoming for fathers, just like Dr. Palausi talked about doing things just for parents in general. What are some things you need to do for fathers? You can do that by getting some male feedback. What are some things you would do, fathers? What would bring you in outside of Donuts for Dads, things like that? What are some other things we could do? Could we do a field day? Different things and get feedback from them so that they're involved in the process. You're empowering them and doing things that they'll enjoy, not just things that you think will work. Incorporating father-friendly activities, that goes along with that statement. And last, encouraging positive male interaction. So of course, having that father involved, having father-only events, which it should involve food or activity. That's just kind of a basics. If you want men, get some food and activity. We're not going to sit around and just talk in a circle. We need some food and we need to be doing something while we're talking. So encourage positive male interaction. And that also can include you all as a staff doing things to encourage male interaction and having men involved, whether that's staff that's involved doing some things with kids, having positive males around them, seeing it model will help children, right? So that is it for as far as the formal presentation. I believe right now we will open it for questions or any comments that anybody may have.
Yeah, and feel free to type or add your question into the chat box or raise your hand and unmute your microphone.
And
Excellent presentation. Thank you so much, Mark.
Yes, thank you for sharing the resource. And you may even be able to talk more about it, but what happened to you? Addressing the what, not just seeing the acting out, the blaming, but really being, okay, thank you. I'll put my contact information back up as well, but dealing with what happened. In my introduction, I'll go ahead and put it up right now if you don't mind. In my introduction, I shared, or my moderator shared that I have 3 children that we adopted. And the oldest one went through the most trauma. So we're now dealing with stuff because of what he saw with his mother. We got him when he was about 4, but he already had experienced some things. So now we're dealing with stuff. Now we could just sit back and, oh man, and then, it's bad kid, whatever. No, he's dealing with stuff. He's dealing with stuff the best way he can as a 10-year-old. So it helps us to look from a different lens and not just blame, not just, oh, they're bad. Oh, I don't want them in my class. No, what happened and how can I work with him? How can I be more patient with him? How can I understand him or her? What can I do to be a positive role model? How can I empower them versus blaming them? What can I do to not, victimize them any more than they've already been victimized? Any other questions?
There are a couple of, sorry about that.
Okay.
There are a few comments here from Cassie that this was very informative. Gets the brain thinking about ways to reach fathers in the neighborhoods where Cassie serves. And Miss Wright, hi Miss Wright, will reach out to you. Can you share the presentation? Is there a way that I think everything is recorded today and will be shared with participants so that you can go back and view all the sessions that are recorded. Let's see. Couldn't log on. So maybe some personal examples as well. Great that you left that information up, Mark, to maybe provide some resources and support. Okay.
Yeah, I also just put it in the chat. So if anybody can copy and paste but yes, I definitely will share the presentation.
Okay, great. For those of you who work directly with families and fathers, I was just curious, maybe what stood out to you in the few minutes we have remaining that maybe you'll bring back to those families. If you work, in the school setting or work more in a social work capacity or any other way. If you want to put that in the chat. If you also have questions that you're thinking of and you want to add here in the last couple of minutes that we don't answer, we will collect those and follow up with you as well. And we will end at the 50-minute mark. So if there's anything else, please feel free to raise your hand, unmute, share it in the chat. Mark, were there any other comments or questions that you saw that we haven't addressed yet?
No, I definitely, if you want to go deeper into any of these areas, please reach out to us, whether that's learning about our reality check curriculum, whether that's getting connected with a local site in your area, please reach out. We'll definitely can share information and have a deeper conversation. I feel like I just kind of whet your palate today to say, hey, these are the issues with fathers. So, next steps, if there's things you can do with a local fatherhood program, if there's things we can do as a center. If you want to see the documentary that we did on these 3 young dads, there's, we can take things a step further if you reach out. So definitely anything you all need help with or want to go deeper into, I'm definitely available.
And a couple of things here. Audrey, do you have any knowledge of where the recorded sessions will be on the SCDE website? Will it be on the homepage or the dashboard? I'm assuming there will be an email following up to send a link to the recorded sessions as well.
I think that there may be a landing page for this particular summit, and I think all the information will appear there.
Okay. Okay. It's important for mothers to understand the importance of the role of father. How can we foster that? It was a question from Polly. And Ms. Wright said the information about mental health was very important. I don't think many people realize how much of an impact is made.
Sure.
So, okay. And
Yeah.
we're at the 11:50 mark. So if you can't answer Polly's question, we can, of course, follow up.
Yeah, and very quickly, I think people don't realize the importance of the role of father. So, you know, again, and when we have such high rates of single parent families, it's important for them to know their importance, to know whether you like them or not anymore, whether you're still in love with them or not, that child is going to have that desire for their parent, regardless of your feelings. So it's tough to do. I mean, you know, various relationships have various challenges, but we've got to do better to make sure that that child has access to their father, whether in the classroom or whether it's, you know, outside. So that's a short and dirty answer.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mark. We really appreciate all of the information and the work that you do. And I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thanks so much, everyone. And look out for that follow-up information for the recording as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.